my point is that the spec should at least say that here's where you use a short-lived key, but you might want to use the long-lived. And one example for using a long-lived key is for an AI agent.
Yeah.
I believe that one of the problems with AI agents is deciding it's gone rogue and you want to delete it.
Yeah.
If you use all its capabilities are to its long-lived key, you can revoke the key. You revoke the key, and then it's effectively cut off from the world. But for normal use, I've found that one-off keys simplify a lot of things and provide better privacy. In fact, the US Navy was very happy with that idea because knowing who issued an order is very important to the enemy.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes, well, it'd be good to pick your brain on this. And sorry, just for anyone on the recording, we were talking for a few minutes. I forgot to hit the button. So, for long-lived keys, the one use case that we found that keeps coming up is if I want to give somebody a stable identifier to say, hey, invite me to this thing while I'm offline. They could generate a random key or have say a server generating new keys for them. But the simplest thing is just to say, hey, here's a link, invite me at this location. And then they can send to that. So one design that Irakli and maybe both of you actually, Irakli and Ugo, who used to work together, came up with was having a cold key, like a totally offline key that you would invite to, and it has delegations out to hotter keys, then out to hotter keys, and then out to their customers. So you still know like who is doing something, but we don't have this problem of, if one of those hotkeys gets, somebody gets into the server, we still have a way of going in and revoking them without having to go back to the issuer. We can do it ourselves in that case. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just suggesting that both cases be included in the spec. And I didn't see any discussion of one-off keys.
Yeah. That it is a good point. Let me just make sure that we capture these. I'm just going to open an issue on the top level spec, just to make sure that I don't lose these. So what was it? One-off keys. What was the thing we were talking about directly before?
Public keys instead of DIDs.
Yeah.
I mean, if DIDs are using the blockchain, you've got a lot of mechanism that you wouldn't otherwise need.
Yeah.
Right. And then it was the argument specification as a string that it can be the CID of a proof of a capability. That was the third topic.
Great.
So one of these, say, do only work when you own the resource, right? So you can delegate yourself to one of key, but if resource is owned by somebody else, then every time you want to get one of key, you basically have to go and ask them to give you a delegation.
Well, no, if when I get the first delegation, and if I ask for a delegation, I can include a public key, and they'll issue it to that. Then I can delegate from that myself. I don't need anybody's help from that.
Right, but the one you're delegating from that is long-lived key then, not the
doesn't have to be. Doesn't have to be. It can be a one-off.
But so if it's one-off, then you need to go back to whoever delegated to that key to delegate you to another new key now, right? That is the trade.
We implemented it without doing that. So I just have a certificate issued to a public key. I can delegate a new certificate from that public key by using the private key. Doesn't have to be a long-lived key. It's just a key.
No, I mean the public key then is a long-lived key, right? It's the one that certificate delegates to.
No, what I'm saying is you can do this entirely with one-off keys. Every capability is issued to a different key. And it just works. Yeah, Brooklyn just mentioned a couple of use cases where you may not want to do that. But I think there are cases where you want to. So I just thought the spec should mention that you can do that.
Yeah, I'm not arguing against it. I'm just trying to understand if that is something I could use and how I would do that, because it's not obvious to me.
I mean, if you have the patience, you can look at our Zebra copy paper where we did this with SAML 1.1, It's, but yeah, it just works. The mechanism doesn't know whether it's a long-lived key or a one-off key. It just delegates.
Yeah, but in UCANs, we do include issuer and audience, right? So
Yeah.
if audience key is not long-lived key,
Well,
then
the audience is the resource server, right?
For an invitation.
identified by
Yeah, it's been identified by any means necessary, like a public key. That's a long-lived key.
yes, that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, but you're not issuing you don't have to issue the capability to a long-lived key. The key you sign when you do an invocation or when you delegate can be a one-off key.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Invocation,
absolutely,
the terminal point.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So anyway,
I was just wondering what is gained by that, because like if you can trace all of the chain and only the like outer key is changing, then you kind of still
you
can
have
trace.
to anyway. You have to anyway. If Brooklyn delegates to me with my long-lived key, you have probably have no way of knowing who I am or how to trust it or anything. It's as useful to you as a one-off key.
Got it. Okay, makes sense.
Anyway, those were the three things I came up with. Out of reading that whole spec, I came up with 3 questions. Nothing I saw that was a mistake. So I thought that was a remarkably good job.
Thank you. Yeah, that's nice to hear. And very much the other folks on this call and you, Alan, as well, with the feedback over the years. I think we've kind of like gotten into a good place. I hope so, because we're at a 1.0.
Yeah. No, I was worried originally when you said you were going to 1.0 because the earlier version of the spec had a lot of stuff that I thought was questionable. And so when I read this one, I kept making notes saying, "Oh, that's fixed. Oh, this is fixed." So
yeah, it's been a long road, but we're basically there. So maybe that's a good segue. I can show the stuff that Chris was working on, and then I have a similar alignment question with the policy fixtures for UGO, just to make sure that our implementations align. But let's start with the tool here. So I haven't seen this basically at all. Chris sent me a message like a couple minutes ago being like, hey, I can't make it to the call. I'm in transit. Please, could you show this on the call, sort of in my stead? And it would be nice if it showed up as a option in the Zoom window, but it's not currently.
What isn't showing?
The inspector. I'm just not getting it as an option. Maybe I have too many windows open. Yeah, it's still here. Let me close a couple apps. Like, I don't need Preview or Safari or Mail.
I just want to remind, I just realized there's one other thing I wanted to bring up, but I can do it at the end.
Okay.
Oh, you removed the example, so you're gonna need a serialized token to test it out.
There are examples in there. I just found them. So does everyone see the screen?
No.
The inspector?
Yeah.
Okay. So we had a much older inspector on a much older version of the spec. And it was made, but I appreciate everyone who made it, but it was made by engineers, not designers. And Chris is an actual designer. So here's an example. So, you post your token here, you get breakdown there. And with this debug button, it has some sample tokens for us.
All
So
right.
if we want to take a look at, say, an invocation, here it is in base 64 because we're on the web. And it breaks down for us the issuer subject audience command, you can look at the payload, the args, the proofs, all of this stuff, nicely broken down. And if we want to look at, say, a delegation, here's this is token one. I was getting one earlier with multiple tokens on it, but you can also deep link somebody. So right in the URL, it'll take you to this specific token. Maybe it's even encoded and put in the link. I'm not sure exactly how he has this set up because I've just seen this. And here up here we have token one, token two, so we can look at the entire chain heading back. Signature verified, it uses the entire library. So exercises the whole thing, which is great. And yeah, we got a lot of use out of this on the previous version that we haven't had it for a little bit because we've updated the spec. So this is an actual 1.0 system. So the URL for this, I'll post in the Discord. Chris is actively looking for feedback on it. If we want anything changed or updated, or if we really like something, let him know directly over there. Maybe we could even open probably under the website. I'll post the link. But yeah, so I'm pretty excited about this because we haven't had one of these for a hot minute. So.
I wanted to, actually, this points to the other topic I wanted to raise. Mike Schwartz of Glue, I don't know if you know Mike, he's an active participant at IAW, has come up with the idea of TBAC, which are tokens that contain a policy within them, which I see there. Rather than coming up with your own policy language, it seems that Cedar out of AWS is gaining a lot of traction. And so you might want to consider using an existing policy language. They have a lot of infrastructure behind it, like verifying that the request is authorized by the policy and so on. So you might want to consider not having to do all that work. Let somebody else do it.
What's the name you mentioned?
Cedar.
EDAR. I think it's out of AWS.
Yeah. We did look at it.
I think I mentioned this to you, right?
Yeah, Irakli and I looked at this when we were writing the update to the spec a while back. There were a couple at the time. One, it didn't have as much traction. It was just sort of a thing that they had recently released.
Yeah.
And it isn't CID aware. So it doesn't know how to resolve those and promises and a few things like this that we would have had to add anyway. So like, I agree, we want to reuse as much infrastructure as we possibly can. But there were, and maybe it would be worth us writing a little thing on like, why not Cedar? Or like, why didn't we extend Cedar instead? We have implementations already, as nice as it would be to use their stuff. And I would say, whether or not it's gaining massive traction now, we're at a 1.0, we have 3 implementations. Like it's a little late, but I appreciate bringing it up.
And you might want to have a tag in there that says what policy language you're using, and then people can use it. The thing I liked about Cedar was it comes with its own verifier, so it can verify that this policy is indeed a subset of that policy, or this invocation is authorized by that, and so you don't have to write any code to do that. It comes with the Cedar infrastructure.
That was the intention in our case also. So
yeah,
the main driving factor was that can we have a policy language that we can verify without knowing anything about the domain of the application?
Yeah. And I haven't tried it, but that's the claim.
But we also looked at some of the more advanced ones, like with Daylog and stuff. In fact, we had a draft where we copied, I think, a lot from Biscuit, but we ultimately end up simplifying it into this version, mostly because one of the design goals was, I think, from my perspective at least, so we can have a nice UI where you can see and tweak what you're redelegating, so reduce the capability space. And if you go to advance in the language that describe that policy, you lose some of the abilities where you can actually visualize it and make it tweakable by the user. But I think it's a good call out. We should probably have some document that explains how we arrived to a decision and what we considered, so it's more clear why.
Okay, yeah, no. Anyway, he's pushing that down that path. We'll probably be discussing it some the next week at IOW.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, also just on the data log or the logic language side of things. So when we were prototyping this last year, I guess, Rackley and I actually did a version with logic variables in it. It wasn't that much work to actually implement, but and it was extremely expressive. Like you could say, this part of the structure has to match that part of the structure. They relate in this way, like all of this stuff. But all logic languages, including query languages, have like it's very difficult to control their performance, and so we figured having a much tighter run performance was a higher priority than the expressive.
Well, I think Cedar took that lesson that most programmers don't understand the data log type languages, and so they intentionally simplified the thing. They're also running into performance issues because of the way they're using it, not necessarily because of policy. They put the policy evaluation on the critical path, on the request path.
Right.
You would use the policy language perhaps off path to give real policy to hand out capabilities, which is basically a cache of the policy decision. But they're working very hard to optimize their policy evaluations. I think the risk is if the performance is bad, people will use weaker policies that will over provision, and that's the risk here too. So, but you're using it only as caveats, so the policies are likely to be simpler.
Yeah, exactly. And it's only doing syntax checking. For really doing like JSON validation. In our tests, it's been like, you could make something that's relatively large with lots of inner loops, I guess. But we haven't run into anything that's like a major problem. Like it's not on the, it is on the, invocation path because you have to validate, does this invocation match or not, right? But because it's only managing the syntax, it's very light.
That's not sufficient, is it? Because you have to make sure a delegation is properly subsetted. So that's more than just syntax.
Yeah.
We do check those too. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I expected so, but the way you worded it confused me.
And you can also cache it, right? So if you validate some chain and you see it again, you don't have to revalidate over.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I bring up a different subject that I've been thinking lately about and sort of interested? I think, Brooke, you mentioned it before, using zero knowledge proofs to do the chain compaction and kind of anonymizing, I suppose, also who's in the delegation chain.
Actually, you don't need zero knowledge. You just need snarks. And there's a place if you want to play with it called Baby Snark. And it looks like it's really dramatically simplified, but it lets you experiment with snarks very easily. So just something to look at.
They've done snarks without the zero knowledge part, without the CK.
You don't need the zero knowledge part. You just need the snark because you're just proving. You're not trying to hide information, and that simplifies the computation and reduces the size by like factor of 5 or something.
I think I need to learn more about it, but I also want to hide information, as in all the actors involved in the delegation chain or how they constrained through the delegation chain, right? You just want to know.
That's the advantage. That's the advantage of one-off keys. Anyway, go
on. Anyway, the question, however, was assuming we do that, then revocation. I'm not sure how that would work because suddenly you lose that ability, right? You cannot know.
So I talked to Dan Bonet. I talked to Dan Bonet about this. You can revoke the certificate. What you can't revoke is in the middle of the chain.
I think you can.
He believes he can. He believes that you can. I'm trying to get him to maybe have a thesis student work on that. Haven't succeeded yet, but he believes it's going to be possible.
So maybe doing it in like a zero knowledge something, but one way of handling it is to make part of your circuit, the inputs to the circuit, the CIDs of the chain.
Yep.
You say, here's the set that this covers. And then when you go to validate it, that comes along with the snark, right?
Yep.
Here's the CIDs plus the snark. And then one of them was revoked.
I gather, that's what I suggested to Dan, and he thought a minute. He says he thinks it's more complicated than that. I don't know why.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he actually thinks it's an interesting research topic, being able to go somewhere in the chain, revoke somewhere.
I guess it doesn't necessarily even need to contain CIDs, right? I could have a hashes of CIDs, so I cannot necessarily look up what the delegations were. I just need to know whether they were removed.
Sure.
Yeah. I
thanks,
don't, I'm not a crypto guy, so I just ask smart people.
Yeah, we had someone looking at this for another project that I'm working on, like just sort of like over their weekend sort of thing. And her conclusion was very similar to what ours has been historically, that we're not going to be able to put snarkifying things on the hot path at all. And the general complexity of things like, checking the delegation chain and validating, the policies, like all of this stuff in there can be pretty heavy. And so like it's doable, but it's definitely sort of the thing where you want to do like offline compression. And I was like, well, like, are we talking seconds here, minutes? And she was like, probably more like on the minutes scale.
Oh, really?
And like, you're probably not going to do this on your phone. I'm like, okay, good to know.
So we have one data point. The HP eSpeak product used spooky certificates as capabilities. And we had actual customers running their businesses on this thing. And we never saw a delegation chain as long as 10. So that's one data point. They were typically 2 or 3. Couple got as large as 5 or 6. But that was one data point for them.
Similar at Fission.
That was 25 years ago, so I have no idea, but it is a data point.
My interest mostly had been, say, Brooke invited me to some group collaboration thing, and I want to invite Hugo without revealing that Hugo got access through me.
Ours were enterprise cases. So my company signs a contract with your company, gives you a capability determining everything covered by the contract. You subdelegate within your company. Then we don't need federated identity.
Yeah, I get it.
So, and there's where they got the longer chains. But again, it was never as long as 10.
Brooke, you did mention that somebody looked into this and came to the conclusion that putting on a hot pass would be complicated. And by hot pass, we mean creating proofs or validating the proofs?
Creating proofs. Yeah.
Okay. So there like lately had been some CK stuff coming up that seem to claim that they do on device, even in browser, proving in a fairly fast manner that I assumed was seconds, not minutes, but it is good to check, I suppose.
There's a trade-off. You can have easy to create, hard to prove, hard to create, easy to prove. And then you have the question of the size. Some of them are bigger and some of them are smaller. And that's the extent of my knowledge, but you've got those trade-offs.
Yeah. When we
those are covered in the Baby Snark webpage, so those are discussed there.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see this Baby Snark thing. We were looking at this with Groth 16 way back when, like prior to this more recent, investigation into it. But I think she was still using Groth, I think. And it was like the size of the circuit required would just take a long time to run, or to prove, and then like 16 milliseconds or something to validate. This wasn't UCAN, this was a related project, but still. And it, depends on the chain size, all of these things. But I don't know, I'm still interested in it because if you're willing to do the offline proving, you could still do the normal delegation for the, fast use case. You're trading off size now and visibility. And then you can compress offline. And even if it took, let's say something ridiculous, an hour, like, okay, cool. That ran in the background for an hour. And then now it's, small and private and, all of these things, right? So,
Yeah.
Well, I think you'll learn when you implement.
I think one case where we were considering it is for the use case that I mentioned, and solutions that kind of was not ideal was to involve third party, right? That you can use them to do the chain compression. So tell them if they're in a chain, say like, can you hide this and delegate? Here's my proof that I have access. Can you compress it and delegate right to me? So we hide it. But the constraints are then they need to be in a chain, which maybe you don't want to do. But similarly, you can then imagine having a third party that just does a snark part, right? You can give them a chain and say, can you compress it for me? And maybe it takes some time, but after end of it, you have a
My
one
understanding is
compressed chain.
my understanding is you're not going to get a lot of compression. These proofs are big, hundreds of megabytes. Some of them. There's work going on to reduce the size.
So Mina is using recursive proofs, and they claim they're under 80 kilobytes or something like that.
Okay.
The whole chain.
Okay, good.
So I assume that is possible. I'm not an expert in the field, but there are more and more things coming up like that.
Yeah, the ones that we were looking at with Groth 16, the recursive snark, it was about 200 kilobytes.
Okay. I go to the Stanford security lunch every Wednesday.
Oh, nice.
So if you have crypto questions, I can ask them there. I have people who really know this stuff. So just send me a mail.
Dan knows a thing or two, right?
Yeah, and his students are really smart too, and they have more bandwidth than Dan. So.
Awesome. Yeah. This is definitely an area of interest, but and I mean, if somebody wanted to take it on and do it, I certainly wouldn't be against it. But I think in the meantime, it's like, let's just get like everything solid 1.0 in production, infrastructure, et cetera. And we can work on this, which is a super interesting case, right? But we can work on this stuff.
But I think it's a 2.0 problem, I think.
Yeah, or a 1.1 or something, because it doesn't require any changes, I think, under the hood.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be part of a spec. It was mostly my interest whether our revocation system allows for such a thing, and if it doesn't, maybe there is maybe something we need to consider there.
No, Dan said that given a snark of a delegation chain, should be possible to revoke from the middle down. Okay. But he believes it's a research question.
Right. Yeah, and in the meantime, you could make a public argument all of the hashes of the CIDs, and that would work. Right? Because then you could validate that covers everything. Yeah. Cool. Oh yeah, we're starting to get a couple people coming in here near the end. Bunch of people, actually. I wonder if these are all from the same meeting that ran late that Alan was in.
We had a meeting and it ran out of that. So.
Okay, no worries. So on the policy fixture side, I'm just going to mention this. We don't even have to go into it that deeply. We don't have to. So the Go and JS implementations wrote some fixtures to make sure that they had the same behavior. I think we may have talked about this case live where my implementation has diverged, but I can't remember because it would have been several months ago. But there's one case where it was failing for me, and then I did the whole pull my code apart, debug, print lines, all of this stuff, and then it was like, actually, I think mine's the behavior I would expect, but maybe not. Let's talk about it. So there's an an open PR, Ugo, on the spec repo with the change to the fixture that makes my test pass with behavior that I think is correct, but also maybe not. I don't know.
Did you like this is policy fixtures? I think I basically tried to. 1 second.
Yeah, I'm grabbing the link.
It's there. It's in the chat.
Oh, thanks.
I think I just copied all the examples from the spec.
Hmm.
I didn't like came up with any new example. So if we're changing this, we probably should change the corresponding example in the spec.
Right.
So what exactly is it?
It's sorry, I see where it is on the spec, but we don't have an example code that it should, or example args that it should validate against. So that might be where it's gone wrong. So we say for all newsletters, any recipients need to have this email, or Bob has to be one of the emails on this newsletter. And right now it's missing one layer, I think, to make that pass. It treats, because there's an object, and it treats that object as the first element in an array, as opposed to grabbing the values out of the object and saying for each newsletter, which might have a name or not, throw away the name and look at the newsletter. And I think that second behavior is correct, because you could have like the Christmas newsletter, the sale newsletter, the hiring newsletter. I don't care about the names. I want to look at the values, as opposed to treating the whole object as wrap it in an array and then check. But we don't have to talk about this online. I just wanted to point you at it and be like, hey, this one's different, I think, and we can add example args that it should match to the spec. There's no example args there right now. So
Right, let's figure that out. But did you try the other fixture? Does it?
Yeah, everything else passes.
Nice.
Everything else passes. Yeah.
All right. Now we just need to add policies to the UCAN fixtures.
The policies to the fixtures. This is the policies fixture.
No, we need a UCAN fixture that actually includes policy.
Oh, I see. Sure. The whole thing.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Can I ask status of the Rust library of UCANs that seems to be passing this test? Is it out there and can I use it, or?
So I just got the tests. I just did this exploration over the weekend. I'm hoping to have it now that all the tests passed and everything. I want to clean up one or two things, but like we're talking sort of on the order of like days here. I should have it on crates. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks.
Yeah. And I think I now have push rights to the crates name. I think Chris, different Chris, gave me access a couple months ago. So yeah. So are you actively using UCAN in your project right now?
No, we're not using UCANs yet,
Okay.
but we are implementing the database things that we want to use UCANs for authorization stuff. Assuming it's ready. If it's not, then we'll probably short-term use kind of subset of a UCAN, which is effectively creating a case where it's a signer and issuer and audience are all the same actor. So simplifying it so we can ship what we want to ship sooner. But if Rust library is ready and we can just drop it in, then we'll just use that as opposed to do what I said.
Should be available very, very soon. There won't be WASM immediately. I want to rewrap the WASM just as I've learned more about how BindGen does weird things. There's some changes I want to make. But yeah, I'm going to ship it iteratively at this point, so you'll get a first version like very soon.
When you say there won't be WASM things, that means you won't be generating WASM stuff, or if I use in a project where I generate WASM artifacts, it will be incompatible?
No, it'll be totally compatible. Like you can compile it to
Okay.
WASM, absolutely.
Sure.
But WASM bindgen, the bindgen wrappers, I want to redo.
Gotcha.
Bindgen does some weird stuff with ownership.
Oh,
That
no.
yeah. Yeah,
Got it.
and so
Yeah,
I
that's
found some good
it
patterns
will.
for that recently, but yeah.
I'd love to learn them. I guess if you could share some of those, that would be helpful side of
Sure,
it. But
yeah.
I guess that bindgen part of it is not interesting because it will be part of a bigger thing that there's its own bindgen, so it will be hidden away.
Yeah.
Cool. Unless there's other subject, I'm kind of curious, Brooke, you've been doing a lot of work on Keyhive, and from my understanding, it is kind of stripped down version of UCAN's or some inspired of it.
Not
But
exactly. Yeah, inspired.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess, are there some learnings that could be applied here? Could we strip it down further, or anything in that realm, if that makes sense? Or like, how
Maybe.
would I even go about choosing between two, right? Like, that
Oh
might
yeah,
be a
I
valid
can tell you
question
that
to
one
ask.
really easily. Is your data only eventually consistent? If so, consider Keyhive. If not, if you need anything stronger, then you should use UCAN. So Keyhive's capability system under the hood is causally consistent. And all of the constraints around it are for that. It only works on CRDT's data. It doesn't do side effects at all. And it doesn't have a policy language. You get access to mutate, read, nothing. We have a lot of interest in adding a policy language from other people, but the problem is because we're generating one of these per keystroke with auto merge, that can lead to a lot of invocation information, and we're doing some compression on that and columnar encoding it, and all these things to clean that up as much as possible. But if the documents and the all of the invocations and delegations and all of this information gets too big, then because we can never clean them up, we can never garbage collect them because they're around forever because of causal consistency. You can never delete them. So that's an operational overhead challenge, unlike in UCAN, where we can get rid of them after they expire. And we don't have a space for a policy. They have to be super, super thin. But otherwise, like the overall structure of them, where we have, closing the loop and delegations between ED25519 keys and, all of that stuff, that's the same. So like, yeah, it's a stripped down version, but then there's this consistency model change that is not going to work for anyone who's not using a CRDT.
So if on the policy part, like if you're not tweaking the policy on every keystroke, you don't necessarily have to recreate that part, right? Or am I
so giving people the ability to
misstating?
write complex policies is too big.
Yeah, but I think you mentioned like it is a problem if you kind of have to do it on every single change in CRDT. But if it's policy you create once, but then it's kind of reused across, then you don't necessarily have to like encode the same thing over and over, right? Or am I missing something?
So you're right, we wouldn't have to re-encode over and over again. But it's sorry, I'm mixing a bunch of things here. Project goals include shipping really, really tiny WASM. It's currently 600K, and that's considered too big. Right, so the more logic we add, the bigger the thing gets. We have to create tokens on every keystroke. So that means that even our invocations can't have complex logic. So when you go to invoke something, you have to keep it to, I made this change and I've certified the entire change. I can't go into it. If you want to do sub-document things, then you have to break up the documents. and link them, like things like this. We might add policies down the line, but like it's definitely, it's highly controversial in the team, and we're seeing how far we can get then without them, basically.
Yeah, so do you sign every single keystroke then too, or is that?
We do, but we can compress them away with columnar encoding. So we basically, as you're making live changes, we sign everything as it goes over the wire. And then we keep the last signature. There's some structural stuff here that I'm not going to get into, but we keep the last signature before a author change. There's some design trade-off in here, but basically then you're covering with that signature all the hash linked content changes until the previous signer change.
On another note, I think Alan is working on something cool about like supporting 1.0 in UCAN. Would love to hear more about it.
Yeah, I'm
the demo the other day.
Writing the UCAN, which Kozala wrote, but for UCAN 1.0 at the moment. And I called it UCAN tone because I smooshed the two UCAN and one together. It's not ready, but that's why I've kind of been engaging a bit more as well, because of just trying to implement things and make sure everything's correct and stuff. So I'm kind of writing validation for invocations now, just checking the delegation chain and stuff like that. But yeah, it's all sort of going to be, if you're familiar with UCAN, then it will be familiar, just in the terms of the way that that library structures and how this is structured similarly but differently because of obviously the changes that have been made. But yeah, and the hope is that we, like Storacha as an organization, might be able to use that library to replace the UCAN 0.9 implementation in the near future. So yeah, we're doing okay. But yeah, apologies for the any stupid questions that I have, and any clarifications or whatever that come up. Yeah. It's not that I wasn't interested before, but now I'm like in the weeds of it. So it's that's why I'm here. But yeah.
Are you using any of the implementations below for UCAN, or just everything from scratch?
I have so the policy code that is in Go UCAN at the moment was a port that I did from a PR that Irakli wrote to the JS UCAN originally to add policies. So the original Go UCAN policy code is, I think it was what I ported, and then I think it's been fixed, made to work, and apparently has a bug according to today. But yeah, I have used a lot of the libraries that are there as at least inspiration. I think there are some bits that we are using for sure. The way that I think the Go UCAN stuff has been made doesn't quite fit with as cleanly as into the thing. So I've kind of just used them as like the basis for a lot of the implementation there. So it's different but the same. Yeah. Oh, and I did do a demo last week, and I have a really nice CLI visualizer for UCAN delegations and invocations. So just display everything really nicely in a table, as well as containers. And then you can sort of, in the CLI, you can kind of, because a container is just a bunch of like a, seeable list of bytes, but each item is a delegation or an invocation. You can kind of drill into the container items and be like, show me this, index 0 of the container, and it will display that whole thing. So I will post the videos. That we normally put all of our demo videos on YouTube, so I'll post it somewhere that will be seen by the UCAN folks. But yeah,
If you
that
stick
tool,
it in the Discord, that would be really awesome.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. The tool, these are both open source things, so I will post links as well. You can, yeah, you can too. I called it UCAN tool because anyway, I can't help myself. Sorry. There we go. Here's the UCAN tool. Probably needs more documentation. And UCAN tone. It's UCAN tone. Or UCAN 1.0. Really poor readmes on my behalf. I'm sorry.
Is this supposed to work with any UCANs? Like, can I use a tool to visualize a UCAN that I got from somewhere else?
If yeah, hopefully, if the implementation works good in terms of decoding it, then yeah, it should, as long as it's spec compliant, it should work.
Awesome.
Yes.
I'll be sure to set it out. We now have a web inspector and the CLI inspector.
Nice. Yeah. I really where is this web inspector? Can I see? Is it released?
Yes.
Uh,
It's not released, it's a preview. Let me get you
Yes.
we were just looking at it. There it is. Oh, too big. There you go. And if you go into there's a debug off button on there. There's some example tokens that I was trying to paste, but it's too big for the chat on Zoom. So
Yeah, nice. Yeah, this is really cool. Oh, thank you.
awesome. Yeah. And I'm definitely curious to see those videos, and I mean the first stars on both of your projects. So amazing. So we have 5 minutes left here, which is usually sort of like a quick topic. If anyone has anything else, if there's anything that we can help support, Alan, you were asking some questions in the Discord that I eventually got back to you about. Sorry, Ugo, if you need anything else from me, anything else people want to chat about, or should I give you a couple minutes back here?
Good.
All good?
Good.
Great.
Thank you.
I'm very
Amazing.
excited that these calls are back and people are doing cool stuff.
Yeah.
Success.
That's one.
Yeah. Plus 1,000 on my end. Alan is going to the IIW next week, and they're looking at some UCAN stuff. Keep us in the loop, Alan. If there's anything that we can help with in that endeavor, let us know.
Well, one thing you might want to start thinking about are AI agent use cases, because there are significant differences in the governance and the control, because the AI agent, software does what you tell it to do. AI does what it wants to do. And so you have to think about it differently. So you might want to start thinking about a few AI agent use cases.
Yeah, I'm actually, so not UCAN, is this other, eventually consistent thing that Irakli and I kind of went on a tangent about mid-call. We're doing can I talk about this now? I think so. An AI safety with that plus CRDT's project. So we're going to bring some of those, speaking of things that we could actually take for learnings, I think we can take those learnings and bring them into UCAN for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
Amazing. All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming. I will post the video as soon, it takes whatever Zoom a couple hours to make it available. I'll post that up on YouTube and then into the Discord as usual. And it sounds like lots of good stuff is happening. Ellen, both Ellens, thank you. And super nice seeing you again, Irakli. And Ugo, let's figure out this this policy, and yeah, see you all offline.
Okay, bye.
Thank you all. Bye.